All right. Hello, everybody. We're live here on YouTube. This is always super exciting. I really look forward to these live streams. It's kind of sad for me when we don't have them particular weeks because I have a conflict or one reason or another. But yeah, it is a holiday weekend here in the United States, so we'll see how many folks are able to show up. You might have other plans. You might be out doing something fun, or maybe that's just coming later this weekend. It is, the Memorial Day weekend is really kind of like the start of summer, I feel like. It's not quite the temperature start of summer up here in cold Illinois, but it's starting to feel like summer. We've had a few warm weeks. But, I got a lot of tech news to talk about this week that kind of ties into the smart home. And then also just want to follow up on some stuff with my Ubiquiti UniFi rack makeover video that just went out yesterday. That project was a lot of fun, and just have a lot of a lot of little details to share. Really some interesting ideas coming from a lot of you guys in the comments over on that video. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But I'm going to say hi to some folks in the chat before we get into some of the news. So, hey, James. Yes, happy Memorial Day to all. I need to fix my styling of these overlays, but that's another time, next stream. Good afternoon, George. Nice to see you. Zane, thanks for tuning in. James, I don't know if I updated a UniFi for that particular version. I have noticed that my UNAS Pro now can talk to Dropbox and OneDrive, which is pretty cool. So that is nice. I'm actually logging into my UniFi backend right now just to see what it says, what version I'm running. But I haven't had any issues so far, which would make me think that maybe I haven't been updated to the new version. All right. Going with a little bit different streaming setup behind the scenes here today. So that's why there's a few different little things that are different. That doesn't make any sense, but let's see. I am running network version 91120. The UniFi system for Open Control Plane. Let's see. Yes, I am on 4.1.22, my UDM Pro. So I think that's what you're referring to with, oh no, so I have not upgraded to 4.2. So yeah, we'll see. It says I'm up to date, but yeah. Anyways, I'm going to say hi to some more folks. Let's go. Just started watching your content. Well, thanks. Thanks, Philnup. Thank you. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And definitely sometimes it is hard work. This week I was putting in a lot of hours for an upcoming video project, which you will see sometime in June, which is a lot of fun. So I actually was able to get a hold of a pre-order of a Nintendo Switch 2 arriving sometime around the launch weekend. And so I'm working on a whole smart home themed setup around the Nintendo Switch 2, but also just like gaming in general and kind of lighting for gaming and displays and all that other stuff for casual gaming, not like intensive PC stuff, but more like living room style television things. So yeah, fun video, but it's been a lot of work setting up for, of course, all the consoles or the Nintendo Switch 2 to arrive. So William, thanks for joining. Another nice to see you here. Another regular viewer. Pierre, hello from France. First time. Well, welcome. Good to have you here, Pierre. And yeah, it's nice with switching back to this earlier time. I know some more folks from Europe are able to tune in. So not as easy from Asia as it was from when we did Thursday nights here in the US. But Buddy from Texas. Hello, nice to see you. Oh yeah, E-Town. Cool. Just down the road from me, not too far, over in Elgin. So thanks for tuning in on this holiday weekend. But for a week before the holiday, I think there's a lot of announcements people wanted to get out. Well, of course, there's Google I/O, and then I think OpenAI wanted to announce things the week of Google I/O, and so there's all that. And there's just a handful of other small and big things this week going on with news. One thing that I was getting a lot of requests on with this UniFi video was just, why don't I talk about the costs of the products? Why don't I, say, well, is this worth it based on the costs? And I generally, over time, haven't talked about the costs of products in videos, in part because I want the videos to have a long shelf life of relevance, and there can be any number of factors, especially recently, but any number of factors over time that can change the price of a product. And also the price is relative to everybody, right? Something that's $300 might be very expensive for someone and then not very expensive for someone else. And so they might make a value judgment differently just based on not even just how much money they have, but how much money they usually spend on electronics, right? And smart home tech. So that's why I tend to stay away from prices, particularly just because the value you get, and just focus on what do you get when you buy this thing. Because then you can decide, is what it looks like Eric is saying I get worth the investment of whatever it is for me. But I can understand why people want to see some of the cost breakdown, particularly for something like a bigger project like this UniFi setup. So I went ahead and made a quick spreadsheet here in Google Sheets that just shows some stuff. And it's not perfect because it doesn't include the UNAS Pro is a whole other set of variables of like what kind of drives are you putting in it, and are you getting them from Ubiquiti or somewhere else, and so I didn't even bother to include the UNAS Pro in this. But basically, like a lot of that rack setup that I showed, especially when you include a bunch of the cables, is something around $3,000. Of course, I already had the Dream Machine Pro, but then again, it's also not a perfect comparison because would I buy a Dream Machine Pro for, let's say, $380 right now in 2025? It's not a bad choice. I think it could work well depending on what you want to do with UniFi, but at the same time, and here, let me make this a little bigger so you can maybe see it easier on the stream. At the same time, though, like there's a lot of other really good gateways from UniFi, which if you're not familiar with Ubiquiti UniFi, their gateways are kind of like the central hub of your network. And, there's the Cloud Gateway Fiber, the Cloud Gateway, of course, the Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro SE, or even the Pro Ultra. So some other good options out there for that. So, but yeah, I'm really pleased with the Pro Max 24 PoE. I think it's a really nice switch. Now it's definitely expensive, but you get a lot of PoE slots and, PoE plus plus and PoE plus with also 2.5 gigabit Ethernet in that switch. Plus also the ether lighting comes there. So that's really nice where you see the color of the light shows the speed of the port and whether the connection is active or not. So that can be kind of cool. And whether there's PoE flowing through the port, there's a whole color coding system to it. But yeah, I mean, and I talked about my issues with the Wi-Fi 7 access points. Obviously, those are going to be, there are a bunch of people who chimed in the comments of that video about different ideas of what I should do about that. But we'll see. I still have not moved over to putting my Wi-Fi 7 access point back upstairs. It's still my old U6 LR, but yeah, enough on UniFi for this week. It's not just an all UniFi channel. I know there's a lot of channels out there these days that pretty much just cover what Ubiquiti does because they come out with so many products, but I want to talk about it. But if you're not into it, don't worry. It's not going to be the only thing I talk about here. We also have some Apple news to get to. And, oh, hey, Andrew from another nearby town, Peoria in Illinois. Yeah, thanks. So, the Homey Pro Mini, Zane, I have not heard anything on the Homey Pro Mini. But other than just that they announced it, but I haven't heard about it actually shipping. But it's a good point. Like, when are they actually going to ship that thing? Because it looks like a compelling product. But enough on that right now. OpenAI made the big news this week, of course, outside of Google I/O, which is that they are buying Johnny Ive's startup. And if you're not familiar with Johnny Ive, he was the designer behind a lot of great products at Apple, like the iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, the all of Apple's laptops, and of course, there's products you can argue with. Was it the best of Johnny's work at Apple? There's definitely like the MacBook Pros for a while were kind of too thin and too few ports on them, stuff like that. So not saying he's perfect, but clearly an amazing designer and arguably one of the best that's ever lived, certainly in the recent tech era. And he's joining now OpenAI. And from recent interviews, I watched an interview with him with Patrick Collison, who is the founder of Stripe. Stripe had a big conference, and they interviewed Johnny Ive, which was actually kind of a very meta, interesting point. Not meta, the company, but just meta, lowercase m, was that that room, I think, where they did it was in Moscone West in the Presidio Hall, where Apple did a lot of their product announcements back in the day. So I bet it was very weird for Johnny. And I think they talked about this briefly in the beginning of the interview. It's weird to be back in that room, right? Where Johnny wasn't really ever on stage, but I think from what I remember, he was often in the audience for a lot of those announcements and obviously played a big role in a lot of those product announcements with Steve and then later Tim on stage. But yeah, and I've also heard, John Gruber commented about this on his during Fireball website, as well as some other people just talking about all the other sort of A-list people from design and supply chain going over to this new I/O company that OpenAI is acquiring from Johnny. So really exciting and interesting for just the general side of tech. Maybe not the best prospects for Apple, given that this is going to be competing head-to-head with whatever they do in terms of AI. Of course, Apple, Mark Gurman had some more rumors this week about they're doing some kind of AI push with glasses, kind of in the same along the same lines of what Meta is doing with their Ray-Bans. And of course, Google announced some similar products this week at I/O with their XR, I think is it their XROS or Wear OS? I think it's XROS. And they're Google's partnering with Warby Parker and Gentle Monster. But, the smart home angle here is I think that if right now, I think a big reason to use Apple Home is because you control your home talking to your HomePods and your Siri voice assistants, right? Like all of your Apple devices use a single voice assistant, and that makes it easy to control your Apple Home. Now, Perplexity released an app a while ago, and I think that has some hooks into Apple Home. I haven't really played with it much at this point, but so there are some ways that like other companies could hook into your Apple Home, and I think, but I think it'll definitely call into question, do you want to keep using Apple Home, or do you want to use, something like Homey or Home Assistant and run more of your smart home out of that and run it into multiple other systems just because, and that idea, which I think is kind of crazy in one sense, is also becoming more and more, sounding more and more plausible as we're probably entering this era where if you're watching this live stream, if you're kind of wanting to be on the bleeding edge of tech, you might be wanting to play with a number of these different voice assistants over the years and not necessarily be limited to just whatever Apple's doing or whatever your favorite company of choice is doing. So we'll see, because I bet for a lot of us who love Apple products, whatever OpenAI does, whenever they do it, let's say like in a year, 2 years, it's probably going to really be compelling for the kinds of things I like and probably you like in products of being well designed and have lots of attention to detail. And, it's one of the reasons I love, companies like Eero and Ubiquiti UniFi on the networking side. Both options are different but good. And both I think are very elegant and look great in their own right. And there's other advantages and reasons to choose each of those, and that's a whole other topic. But just kind of tying in what we were talking about earlier. So we'll see where this all lands, but I think it's definitely an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Is just where is all this voice assistant stuff going? Because it's a key way I think a lot of us control our smart homes, and whatever happens with that is I think definitely going to play a role in then downstream, where does your smart home tech live? Where do you put all of those scenes and automations and room names and stuff like that? So we'll see. Oh, cool. Al, speaking of Eero, got the Eero Max 7. Nice. That's a really nice mesh setup. What a difference a solid network makes. Yes, all my lights stay online now. Yeah, I mean, I think the Wi-Fi 7 mesh access points, like the Max 7, and I think the Pro 7 as well, which is what I got from Eero, or what I think a lot of these newer Wi-Fi 7 mesh systems are maybe the first. The 6E generation was arguably also there too, but designed with the smart home in mind, meaning that these mesh systems can keep hundreds of devices online. And of course, you can scale that up to a UniFi network with lots of extra capacity. But I think some of the Eero systems like the Max Pro 7, it's just like it has so much headroom that, unless you want the other options of some more advanced system, I think that's such a great Wi-Fi setup. So I'm glad, Al, that your Wi-Fi, your bulbs are staying online. So it's good to hear. I'm going to catch up with some of the chat. Good afternoon, Brandon. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and thanks on the rack update. It was a lot of fun. And yes, George there too as well. William, another regular. Nice to see you here. Yes, I agree, Al. It's just like, I think there's a chance that OpenAI might be another one of those companies, I think is where I was going with that. And I think it sounds like we're along the same lines. If the timing of what you said, what I was talking about lines up, I think. I'm always a little bit behind where the chat is going. Yes, and Brandon has some puppies, cute puppies. Yes. Oh yeah, must be very hot down in Hilton Head, Saul. Hope you're enjoying the start of summer, I'm sure. So some more smart home news. We have some AirPlay stuff to talk about. So if you're not familiar, AirPlay is or if you've heard about it, but you don't really know what it actually is. AirPlay is Apple's wireless standard for both audio and video for streaming stuff from your Apple devices to some other device like a screen or a speaker, whatever. And so there's been some updates to the Epson projectors, which now mean that they support AirPlay and HomeKit, AirPlay 2, and HomeKit. So that should be really nice if you have an Epson projector. I've actually, I guess this is a spoiler alert that it's here and not in use right now, but this Valerian Stream Master I talked about on my channel a little bit ago That has HomeKit TV support as a projector, as well as AirPlay 2, which is very nice. And I'm actually testing a projector right now that for AirPlay 2 and HomeKit. Now, speaking of AirPlay, there was a security vulnerability potentially around AirPlay that's been going around, and it is still like a potential threat, I guess you could say, but more research is kind of downplaying the actual threat. I think it's good just in general, especially if you're out and about, maybe for the long holiday weekend or some other time out and about. Let me turn on reader mode so you don't see all these ads. If you're out and about and just using your phone or other Apple devices, particularly on, let's say, a hotel network or other more public Wi-Fi networks, just add this ask to join with AirPlay. Could save you from some stuff. But it's, I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but it is, you might have heard about this potential security threat. And so I just wanted to mention it here, but I wouldn't worry about it too much, other than just it's probably good regardless to have that AirPlay and continuity setting turned on to ask instead of automatic. So Google had their big I/O conference this week, and they're gaining a bunch of cool new home APIs that use Gemini intelligence. And I think it's interesting Google's incorporating Gemini in this way. I am excited to see how this actually works in practice. Of course, Amazon, not that long ago, had their whole new voice assistant. I'm not just going to say the words because I don't want to trigger anybody, but they had their new voice assistant powered by AI, kind of in a big press event earlier this year. And they claim it's shipped to a bunch of people. I signed up for the beta. I haven't gotten it. I don't know anybody else who's at least able to talk publicly about being on that beta with Amazon. Of course, Apple's struggled to ship Siri. I think this whole concept of personal context has been very tricky for AI companies to nail and get right from a technical perspective. But I'm glossing over, I think, a lot of details that I understand. Some of them definitely don't understand other details of it, but we'll just skip that for now. For example, though, AI-generated descriptions, I would love to see this with Nest cameras. So I would love to see this with Apple Home cameras or other cameras. Of course, I've been using the AI port as well as some of the AI-powered cameras from UniFi Protect, which has license plate and face recognition. It's nice to be able to search my video history for a license plate and boom, find that particular vehicle. Any car that pulls up into my driveway, I have the plate numbers on. So that's always nice from a security perspective, but just like being able to understand what's in the image, I think these AIs could get a lot better at. I've also noticed across different camera systems, including Apple's, where it's supposed to recognize faces and even use your photo data, I found it gets lots of faces that are the same person. So it'll create multiple faces for the same person and not be able to tell that those faces are in fact the same person, especially when you're dealing with seeing that same face across different cameras, which I think is challenging, right? Like you can imagine how different cameras and different lighting settings might see a face differently. A lot of these surveillance cameras, they don't have the fidelity that even like your phone camera does to kind of pick out the depth of your face. So, we'll see how this all actually works in practice, but like they also had some smart scheduling things like, asking the sprinklers to run tomorrow and just, it can take care of changing the automation. I think there's a lot of just being able to talk to your smart home and have it create automations behind the scenes. It would be really nice. But some of it just like really kind of stretching it, like keep the critters out of my garden. Like, good luck. I don't think that's going to really like work with your smart home, but it's a clever marketing concept, I guess. So we'll see how this all actually takes form. But really exciting AI updates from Google this week. And I'm interested to see how this all comes to their home products. And I really hope that Apple does sort of lean into their advantage. I think Apple's, often criticized for Siri, and understandably so, right? They have a lot of room to grow in terms of Siri catching up to the other voice assistants. But like Apple Home itself was the foundation for Matter. And Apple was very forward in embracing new technologies like Thread. And they were very early in doing things like local encryption of your communication between your smart home devices, and just a lot of stuff that makes sense to have in the smart home, having a lot of your smart home operate locally. Of course, all these ideas are much more standard now than they were, but I think that Apple still has a really good smart home platform, and I really hope that they lean into that advantage as they're trying to catch up in AI, because, well, yes, Apple Home has lots of areas where features could be added. It's like, I think a lot of those features are low-hanging fruit Apple could enhance and really start to be seen as like, okay, Apple might not be ahead in AI, but at least they have a really good smart home tech stack. And like, that's a really great part of Apple's technology. And, the HomePods are still pretty good about understanding basic home commands, and maybe they can get better and better at that. That seems like a lower bar to clear than maybe some of the other more generative AI tasks. So we'll see. That's just my hope, is that Apple might use this as a chance to really focus on the smart home. But it doesn't sound like it based on the rumors that's what we're going to hear at the developer conference. I've not been invited to WWDC, and I haven't heard of any other smart home related folks getting invited. Maybe I've missed something. Maybe that'll come later. But yeah, I mean, it would obviously be fun to go, but I'm not planning on it right now. And I haven't heard of anybody with bigger channels or anything like that actually getting invited either. So, question. Oh, and this brings me to another thing about SwitchBot. So we'll talk about William's question, and then it's been ages. I did this last year, so let me see if I can remember anything about my SwitchBot vacuum experience. But I've tried everything to get my SwitchBot S10 to connect to Matter. Can't connect no matter what I try. I have lots of other items connected to my network using Matter. Any thoughts? So there might be some other folks who have some good ideas in the chat for William, but I would first make sure that your Apple, at least your main primary hub, but ideally all of your Apple Home hubs are updated to the latest software, because with 18.3, I think was earlier this year, that was the big one that added the support for Matter 1.4, which adds support for vacuums. Now, SwitchBot's S10 supports it prior to that, but maybe there's something there that's not lining up, right? Because SwitchBot, I think, did Matter support for vacuums when it was back with the basic switch functionality, which was back in Matter 1.1, I think. Certainly before the new support in Matter version 1.4, which was supported in iOS version 18.4. I said 3 earlier, I meant 4. But yeah, so check that. Then the other thing would just be with, maybe removing the device and resetting it up, but it sounds like you weren't able to add it in the first place. But the reason it's been a year ago, and the reason I haven't used my SwitchBot vacuum, and the reason I didn't have a video this week on the SwitchBot face recognition lock, is just I've been finding more and more that my SwitchBot tech doesn't actually stick in my home, is I guess a good way to put it. Meaning, I think the company's really innovative. I think they're doing some really cool stuff. I think they're really creative, and I don't think they necessarily make bad products. So I'm not saying don't buy SwitchBot stuff. I'm not saying that necessarily. I'm just saying I tried their blind control, and that was fine, but the motor sounded so weird, and it just, and I think it's a little bit easier when you're given this stuff for free to try it and then decide I'm not going to keep it. But so maybe if I'd had some more sunk costs and like actually spending money, I'd be more apt to like stick with it. But either way, like I didn't like that. And then I tried earlier this year, I loved and raved about their CO2 monitor. And my CO2 monitor right now is sitting over here with a blank screen. It just doesn't turn on. All of a sudden just completely broke one day. And, I tried some resetting or stuff, but it's just like a brick device. My SwitchBot vacuum, I got reviewed. I think it was the K10 Pro Plus or whatever. Like their little robot vacuum. I reviewed that, was it 2023 now? And that was great. It was a nice little vacuum to put in the office, but with software updates over time, it just got to hit so many obstacles in my office that every morning I'd just come in and the thing would be stuck somewhere. And so I eventually just got rid of it because it was just like the automation wasn't like a positive thing for my life, right? If it's just taking time every morning to put it back on a charger and it didn't even clean the room because it got stuck somewhere, then it's like, what's the point of the robot vacuum? Now, I know there's plenty of other people who have had great experience with SwitchBot vacuums or other stuff. And it doesn't mean I'm never going to cover SwitchBot again. I just haven't been very excited about a lot of their products. I am very interested in their modular sort of robot platform, right? This new thing that can like move the air purifier between rooms or whatever else, like a tablet stand between rooms. What they showed at CES, that vision, that idea looks really compelling and really exciting. So I don't want to say that SwitchBot is dead to me. But yeah, I've just kind of been noticing this trend of like SwitchBot stuff just doesn't stick in my smart home like other companies. Whether I get something for free or buy it myself, there's plenty of other companies that I'll end up using their tech for years. And you'll see that as a recurring theme in my videos. And yeah, I've been like not as into it. And I also I know Eric Moderate Tech and Shane Watley and others are very much into this whole face unlock thing. It's also something that I think Apple HomeKey is perfect, and just having that, being able to tap your watch, and then eventually maybe the ultra wideband stuff gets worked out, and we can do that with Matter's Aliro standard. I mean, I think there's some exciting stuff coming in locks, but I don't know. I'm not so concerned about getting my door to unlock automatically by walking up to it and it recognizing my face. So it's just not a problem that I personally really want to solve. Now, maybe someone will come out with a really compelling version of that will change my mind, right? I'm always open to trying it and being compelled that it's actually working well. But I just think that the other challenge with a lot of that tech is that it ends up making your smart lock so big because they have to fit so much stuff in there. And then it's just so much stuff hanging off the tension of your door right there, as it's kind of like sandwiching your door as a way to hold it steady. I mean, I know the bolt sort of also is there to in part hold it steady, but yeah, I prefer much smaller or much less computery smart locks that still have some smart features, but aren't quite as revved up. But rant over. That's my rant on SwitchBot, and hopefully William got some better answers from people in the chat. Oh yeah, and that's another good one. He does have other Matter products, but if it's not IPv6, you might need to do that. That's a really good point, Garance, because if this is your first Matter over Wi-Fi device, you'll need to have IPv6 turned on to get that to work. Okay, and all your Apple TVs are on 18.5. That's good, William. So, yes. Thank you, George. Yeah, SwitchBot, innovative company, as George says, and I agree. Great that they are pro Apple Home, of course, for sure. But sometimes, yeah, their execution could be better. I think they have tried multiple times over the years to make their app look better and work better. And I've seen different redesigns come through as app updates. But I think one of the challenges SwitchBot needs to work on is focus. They do so many different things, and their app has so many different things. And I think they can kind of appeal to a lot of us tech-minded folks who love looking at all the check boxes that SwitchBot supports in terms of features, right? Wow, look at all the stuff I can do with this one product. And that's cool in a way, and it provides a value, but sometimes I'd rather like have a product that does less and have it do it really well. And it can be, I imagine, hard for them designing all these products to pick out like, oh, we only want our, whatever product to do these features, right? That's a bold decision and tough to do because you might not have a good product at the end because everybody wanted you to add something else that you didn't add. So it's tricky, but I just think that's kind of they end up going this cycle where they add all these features, which adds all this complexity, which, then sort of goes around and around. And yeah. Okay, yeah. So George and Garance are talking about some UniFi setup devices, setup issues. I've definitely had some adoption issues, but it's been the minority of cases for me with UniFi. Most of my UniFi stuff has worked fine. Yes, that's true, George. It is a nice aesthetic improvement to have the black products. I'm more team white technology compared to if I have the choice between, a lot of companies will offer stuff in white and black these days. I tend to pick the white one, but I know a lot of people love the black colorway. So, yeah, it's a nice side to that. All right. Let's see what else we have to talk about. Oh, yes. So I don't know how many of you guys in the chat use read later services at all, but one of them, we got to pour one out for. Mozilla is shutting down Pocket. So if you used to use Pocket alongside Instapaper back in the day, Instapaper, of course, is still around. And then there's some great new ones like Reader, as well as Matter, not to be confused with the smart home standard. But yeah, Pocket from Mozilla is going away, which is a bummer because it had a lot of good features for free and stuff. And I haven't used Pocket in a while, but yeah, it was part of Firefox, by the way, or Mozilla, the Mozilla Foundation. So we'll see. I would love to see that whole group just keep being able to go, but with this whole Google antitrust trial, I don't know if like the search revenue that Mozilla is basically sustained on, if that's actually going to continue, right? And then Mozilla wouldn't have any funding and then wouldn't be able to make Firefox. And obviously they cut Pocket. We'll see how that all shakes out, but not a good day to, just sad to see Pocket go. Oh yeah. So, William, if you've had the same issue with a Govee floor lamp, it might be something in your network configuration, either with IPv6 specifically or something else with your network settings that are interfering with Matter. And that can be a whole, asking AI and going and Google searching like different network things that should be turned on or off for Matter. So yeah, it sounds like there's something there going on your network, would be my guess. All right. So, we covered, I think, pretty much all the big smart home news that I wanted to get to this week. And let's see if we have any more questions in the chat. Nice to have you all joining on this Friday afternoon. Oh, yeah. So you're limited by, George is talking about his UniFi problems. Limited by the Dream 7 router. Yeah, you just don't have room for the large gateway. Yeah, I mean, I guess because also the Cloud Gateway Fiber, I don't think has any like additional camera slots. Let's go to the capacity calculator. This thing is so much fun. I don't know if you've ever played with this, guys, but if you're into UniFi, of course, we talked about UniFi at the beginning of the stream. Now we're back in UniFi land after some other topics. But yeah, this is really cool because you can see based on different base stations what your system can handle, right? So you want to have the protect video surveillance on, and you want to have like a certain number of 4K cameras. So like it doesn't even let me move the slider on the 4K. Oh no, one 4K camera, right? Or two 2K cameras, or 5 HD cameras. But you can see how then, like if you do a certain number of cameras, it just starts to get up in capacity that it can't handle. And this also, you need to add in your access points, right? So if you have like a UniFi network with, let's say 2 access points, you can move to something like the Cloud Gateway Max, and then you get something like, of course, it's a little bit limited in storage, but then you can add more 4K cameras. But I definitely feel the limit too. I think Shane Watley has the UDM Pro Max. This is the UDM Pro Max, which can handle a lot of cameras and a lot of stuff. The UDM Pro or SE, like I have, that's going to be more. You still get some, 4K cameras. You can do a bunch, but you can't do quite as many. And of course, you can limit the resolution. If you're wanting to get a camera for UniFi and you don't have the capacity on your existing system, you can have something recorded at a lower resolution for now until you can get a more beefy gateway. Or also, there's something like the UNVR. Maybe, George, I don't know, like maybe you could try fitting a UNVR, like the basic UNVR could be something to consider, because it's only one rack mount unit, and all the rack mounted stuff comes with little rubber feet you can stick on the bottom. And so you could probably find a shelf somewhere to just slot that thing in and have it sit there with its hard drives. It's not going to be silent because it's running hard drives. So in an apartment, I don't know where you'd actually like put it that would work well. I'm with you there. I think it's a challenge. I mean, you could, I guess, put a couple SSDs in there instead, but then that's really expensive. Anyways, the UNVR might be something to think about, just because then you're really going to build up your video surveillance capacity, and then it's all just going to go to there instead of your Dream router. So, something to throw out there. But the capacity planner is really cool. And then this is the Cloud Gateway Fiber was the one that I was talking about earlier, that I think a lot of people I know who are getting into UniFi these days are getting the Cloud Gateway Fiber, especially if you have fiber optic internet. It's a real nice setup there. But again, you need fiber optic internet, and I don't think this has any built-in Wi-Fi capability, so you need to get your access points in addition to this. One of the other, again, I love Eero as well, so I don't want to like diminish them. But one of the things that I love about the UniFi gateways, like the fiber as well as my UDM Pro, which I don't use, but I just think it's a cool idea, is that you can have multiple connections to the internet and it can balance them. And so it can either have one that's used all the time and then just fails over to the other, or you can have it sort of swap between the two depending on your load and whatever it decides is the right choice. And so I just think that's a cool idea of like, if your cable goes out, you still have your cell internet or whatever. Like, you can have your cable and your fiber internets. So just obviously that's more relevant when you get to like a business industrial scale office complex kind of thing. But, and actually UniFi even sells their own kind of cellular system you can set up as that sort of 5G internet that is meant to be a backup system. And you can connect that in. But yeah, I haven't played with it myself, but I think it's something that's fun to check out. All right. So, oh yeah, this is a good point. Steve's Mac Fix asking about, we were talking about voice assistants earlier and how Apple's is lagging behind and all that stuff. But yeah, I primarily don't use the voice control. Well, I should say for there's a lot of cases where I use buttons, but there are still things where I use the voice control, but it's usually like a command that I know what to say and it does it. And I also find, even though I have buttons in various other places in the home and I continue to teach other people in my family, hey, you just press this button and then it does this thing, still end up using the voice assistant. Like my wife still ends up using the voice assistant to command it. I guess it's just more natural. Also, I mean, the side note on that is like my smart home's always changing. And so sometimes the buttons break and then the HomePod's a thing that works. So they'll go talk to that instead just because that's what they know works. So there's that side of it too. But yeah, I mean, I'm big into buttons, although, yeah, so I've been, I go back and forth. George knows about this, but it's like, I've been working on and off on a app that's really focused on, improving your experience using buttons in Apple Home. But I've gone back and forth on whether I actually want to develop it and release it just because I don't know. I have a lot of doubts, but I'm also like really excited about, I love the idea, but I just don't know. Yeah. I don't know if how useful people will find it and stuff like that, but we'll see. It's a project that I work on and then I put it aside and then I work on it again and I put it aside, and it's been going on for like a year now almost. So one of these days, maybe I'll actually ship the thing and you'll see my new app. But in the meantime, that's all you'll hear about it probably. So, but yeah, I love buttons. I think, using little buttons and putting them at the entrance of every room. Like you can't see it in my shot here, but like I got my Onvis thread-based button here that's hooked into Apple Home with different lighting controls. I actually have so I use an A10 Mini Pro for streaming, and that's hooked into a smart plug, and a lot of scenes in this turn off the A10 Mini Pro. So I'm not going to touch any buttons here to demo my room because otherwise my camera feed would just cut off. So, but yeah, I have this at the entrance of the room, and it's nice to be able to trigger different scenes when I want to in my office, and then I have them at the entrance of a lot of other rooms and different setups. I might go with, and you can see some of this in my smart home tour. At some point, I'm going to go into more detail about like how to use buttons in sort of more advanced ways and some fun things there. But yeah, that's for another day. But good question. WWDC coming up. What are you looking forward to seeing at the event? I am really looking forward to seeing what Apple does with their redesign. I love the look of Vision OS, but I am curious how that might fit with the rest of Apple's operating systems. And typically in the past, when Apple redesigns the Mac, they tend to make a lot of people who use the Mac a lot not happy with it. So I'm excited to see a fresh take of UI across Apple's platforms, and I think they could do a lot of cool stuff there, but we'll just kind of see how it all shakes out. I'm also interested to see what they do or don't do with smart home tech. I'm not really anticipating this to be a smart home focused year with WWDC. I also think that, last year there was a lot of new stuff coming around with Matter, right? We had robot vacuums They also talked about Aliro locks, which I think has hit some timeline delays and snags along the way. We don't have any Aliro locks right now out in the market, meaning the whole ultra wideband Matter standard that Apple was going to support or is going to support. That I think has hit some delays, but yeah, we have robot vacuums now, which was announced last year at WWDC. So we'll see if there's any more additional Matter things that Apple decides to support or announce there. I think probably the most likely thing that we will see in Apple Home, which I don't know if I'll be super excited about, but I think it's interesting, is probably some kind of version of the home summaries that's more powered by Apple Intelligence, right? Like something that writes you a little quick 2 sentences or 3 sentences about what's going on in your home. Like the front door is open, the garage door is open, and the back deck camera is not responding or something like that. We'll see, but kind of taking notification summaries and applying it to Apple Home. I'm also interested to see what they do with AI related APIs. The rumors are they're going to surface their Apple Intelligence SDKs to developers, right? So developers can use that as a free, so to speak, way to use AI on the device, potentially. I think that's cool. I would really love to see Apple do more flexible, but also controlled integrations of some external APIs, like bringing in some other models from other companies and somehow having them on the device that then you could access. Because otherwise, if you're trying to ship your own app with like a local model, it's going to be a gigantic app bundle to download, right? Like, gigabytes of size potentially. And so having that on the device already would be really nice. So I don't know if that's a partnership with Google Gemini or, OpenAI or somebody else, but I think it would be really cool to see Apple actually like let people take more advantage of other models, kind of in the similar way that they have like ChatGPT integrated into Apple Intelligence, right? You can talk to your voice assistant on your phone and ask it to use ChatGPT. I would love to see that kind of integration go further, both for developers, but also just for all of us users on Apple platforms. And I think, those are kind of the two areas and then I think tying this all together, I think there's some stuff they could do with shortcuts, which also then applies to the Apple Home side. And then there's a whole long list of stuff that I don't want to get my hopes up, but like I'd love to see them do if they actually do, which is stuff like they don't really have really good full SDK support for the smart home in widgets or a lot of their other sort of system extensions, right? The HomeKit SDK is only accessible in certain parts of the system or certain ways as an app developer, like as a third-party app developer. And I can understand why, like, the HomeKit API is a lot of, I guess, getting developer-y, like, asynchronous or like tasks that just take some time to complete, right? It's got to go out on your home network and find the status of that light bulb and then come back to your phone and update the status of it. And so there's some things that Apple feels okay with playing around with themselves in sort of their own home widgets, but that's why you don't see, a lot of the people who try to put smart home stuff inside widgets have to be very creative about how they make that work because it's not as well supported as it could be. And so I think there's some stuff like that with the SDKs. It'd be nice to see Apple do more support for the home, but I just think that's unlikely given just the nature of smart home tech and the challenges that has. So we'll see. But yeah, another WWDC coming up. Another good question from Steve. Oh yes, Blogfield. Yeah, I mean, that's a bit. It sounds like from the rumors they're really working hard on that, but I wouldn't expect, based on the rumors we've heard as recent as like a month or two ago, that anything about that's going to change this fast, right? That's going to be more September, October. They'll hold probably some kind of press event about look at our new AI, or maybe even not until next March. Yes. Do I use an Apple shortcut or HomeKit command with your action button on your iPhone? I currently use it to open the doors. Oh, and your Mustang Mach-E. Very cool. trying to get more ideas. Yes. So another channel on YouTube who's a friend of mine, you might have seen if you follow both of us on social media, we met up in Chicago about a month and a half ago now, but Stephen Robles, great Apple and shortcuts and automation creator. He has at least one, I think multiple videos about action button ideas and all ways you can tie it to shortcuts. So highly recommend you check out Stephen Robles over on YouTube for some ideas. But for me, I think the most useful one, I made a short about this a while back, but is actually the action button on my watch, but it could certainly be used with the phone action button instead. And it could certainly be chained with whatever you're doing to unlock your Mach-E doors probably as well. It's just like a very simple shortcut where I hit the button on my watch. It sends a message to my partner, my wife, just the words leaving now. And it doesn't even try and go out, figure out, oh, where is Eric right now? How long until he gets home? Or, is he leaving home or coming home or something else? Like, my wife will know the context of what leaving now means at that particular time. She'll know where I'm headed or what that, where I'm coming from, or she'll know, oh, Eric just must have randomly hit that button and it doesn't mean anything, because that can happen sometimes too. But not as much as you might think. It's really not that often I send a message, but I have that. You have to set up in shortcuts to have it go ahead and send the message without a confirmation from you. So that's another step of like setting up the shortcut. But then I hit the button. I see the text on my watch screen and I know it's sending my wife a message leaving now. So I don't have to do that when I'm in a hurry to get somewhere. So yeah, that could be something to tie it in there with the action button. I tried a bunch of stuff with my action button back when I first got an action button on my phone. To be honest, these days I end up just keeping it on the flashlight. So it's just really handy to have, this button here that triggers a flashlight. And so as much as like I could power it with shortcuts, or even like I've tried like having a shortcut that checks some kind of condition and then runs something or turns on the flashlight, you could do stuff like that. But yeah, that's like a whole other like extra step that slows it down, turning on your flashlight. The flip side of that too, or the other thing I've heard people use the action button for that I think is also really practical is if you're into one of the voice assistants from another AI company, like I use ChatGPT a lot. And so having it be like that voice search, right? So you press down the button and then it opens the voice search for that particular AI assistant. And then you can talk to that because, of course, then you have like your lock button on one side, which is Apple's voice assistant. And then you have the lock button on the other, or the action button on the other side to do the other voice assistant. Could be something worth playing with as well. So, hey, John, nice to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, well, great discussion, everybody. We've been going about an hour. I do almost every time with these streams, leave you guys with a video that I recommend you watch that's not related to smart home tech. So this week, I have one that's actually I took this guy's YouTube course a while back, and he, every so often I do, like videos that more like tell a story about my journey behind something, more like, I guess you could say documentary style, but not really. Like I did one around CES, and I did one recently, just yesterday, posted about my UniFi Dream Rack install. But Matt Diavella is an amazing creator, and just every single video he does almost is like in this kind of style. And I've been following for years. And so, yes, he had a recent video where he went head to head with one of Australia's best baristas in making espresso, which could also kind of fit into your, maybe with your smart home, you also like to have espresso or coffee at home. So I imagine there's some overlap there between what you guys are interested in. But yeah, just link that video. Highly recommend checking it out. It was very well done, and he's always a big inspiration for me. So thank you for tuning into my live stream, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.